What's up guys, my name's Splice and yeah, okay, I'm doing a Eclipse video. I'm sorry, I know, everybody's been talking about it, but I decided, you know what, let's do some interesting facts that you may or may not have definitely probably heard before about eclipses. Now, what makes this particular eclipse interesting is it's the first one to actually cross from one side of the states to the other, just sort of in general, without touching any other actual countries, whether it was Canada, whether it was Mexico, whether it was fucking England or whatever you have it. It's the first one where it didn't touch any other country. Now obviously there were partial eclipses in Canada and Mexico, but for the actual path of totality, which is basically just this path where there's a full total 100% solar eclipse, and that was entirely in the States this time, which is interesting because it hasn't happened since 1912, which is a long-ass time ago. Over 100 years since it's actually happened. So the first time in this century that we've had an eclipse quite like this. That is not to say it is quite as unique as a lot of people seem to think. There's actually a lot of total eclipses that happen. There are eclipses that happen like that are in different countries though. That's the main thing. It's happened in Saudi Arabia, UK, Australia, here in Canada once or twice, and just other countries in general that I can't seem to think of right now. There have been different solar eclipses that have actually happened. In fact, there are groups of people called eclipse chasers who specifically designate scientifically figuring out when eclipses are going to happen so that they can actually go and document them and actually experience them. Now, a lot of people will say that the eclipses are very similar, but they're all very unique in that they're all in different places for the most part, because of the way that the sun and moon eclipsing each other tends to happen. It's not a very common occurrence in the same place. It shifts from, obviously, the next 10 years or so you'll change. But you can actually have around 30 eclipses experienced in your lifetime. That's a general number I'm throwing out because there were actually eclipse chasers that were mentioned who have had 25 to 23 to 27 different eclipses that they have personally experienced before this one. So extrapolating based on that information and the actual age of the person, you can kind of guess that they will see a ton of eclipses in the time that they're around. Now, that said, that is obviously not everyone, and if you went to one of these eclipses, you could actually see it eclipsing a couple of different times depending on how you traveled. Now, for example, Casey Neistat, he had tweeted a lot about trying to travel and try and recatch the eclipse because he was in one town and he was trying to catch it again once it got cloudy.
Look at these clouds! Not good! Not good! I'm not taking the chance. I'm driving 2 hours north to Columbia, South Carolina, where there's not supposed to be any rain.
Now you can do this, however, generally the path of totality and the actual eclipse itself travels very quickly. And the actual eclipse itself only lasts for about 2 minutes, and at the longest, actually, it only lasts 2 minutes 32 seconds, which is surprisingly short, actually. So, obviously, from Canada and Mexico, you could still see this particular eclipse happening, but it was actually more of a 75 to 50 or less eclipse. And obviously, as you probably heard many times, you gotta wear eclipse glasses. In what I actually used was very, very dense glass. It's very thick, heavily opaque, but you could still actually see through it. And the reason that is really just, it has nothing really to do with the eclipse, more the fact that you're looking at the sun specifically to witness the eclipse. And the reason this is because the sun, no duh, is really, really bright. And to actually the level of being enough to actually burn one's retinas and cause severe damage to straight up blindness. Now, this is something that has been kind of touted around as general knowledge. Don't stare at the sun, don't be an idiot. Obviously that's happened with some people. They're gonna stare at the eclipse without glasses because either they can't afford it or they just want to see if the age-old anecdote is actually true. And scientifically we can prove that it's true and people are stupid. Now, that being said, the interesting thing, the reason this is nothing to do with the eclipse, obviously, as I said, but it's just regular sun knowledge. However, when the eclipse is actually at a full eclipse, in the path of totality specifically, but also close to it, you can actually have your glasses, your eclipse glasses off, because it will darken the area so much that you can actually look at the sun, and you'll see what's called the corona. Now, the corona itself isn't technically the sun. It's not the actual mass of fire and death that the sun basically is. It's not the giant gas ball. It's actually just sort of the vapors surrounding it that are kind of just coming off of the actual sun itself. Now, why this is interesting is because it creates a really neat look. If you've ever seen an eclipse, you know what I'm talking about. If you've been in the path of totality, you really know what I'm talking about, because it's quite the unique experience to actually see the thing. Now, obviously, this dissipates over space and time, but because of this, you get a almost will-o-wispy kind of look around the moon as it's fully eclipsing the sun, which is just really, really cool to look at. And obviously you'll be seeing a lot of that over social media over the next couple of days. Nystat obviously has already launched a video on it where he's shown some stuff, but I've also seen on my personal social media and social media in general a lot of people posting images of the actual eclipse happening, either from the NASA probe or from weather balloons or from personal stuff that they've taken. Basically, it's going to flood social media, so if you're not interested, just remember to be aware of that one going on. And otherwise, I mean, it's just a total love fest for the eclipse for the next couple of days.
Look at it, it just goes to darkness! It's totally dark out! Everybody's freaking out!
Now, as far as the actual protection glasses go, you can actually take them off at one point. And that is when you have an absolute, like a full eclipse. That's when the corona's showing and everything else. Now, why this is specific to this time is that it's not as bright and you're not going to burn your retinas off. And this only specifically pertains to the 100% eclipse when you're in the path of totality and very close to it. If you're getting a 75 or less % eclipse, you're still going to burn your eyes out. And I know this personally because, well, it almost felt like I was doing that because I actually had a piece of very dense glass that I was looking through to see the eclipse, and even at 75%, which is the full I could get from Canada where I am, it still ended up being basically really painful to pull the glass down and look away at the same time because, oh my god, the sun is fucking bright. So yeah, basically if you get 75 or less, do not look at the sun. It's going to be very bad for your vision. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's already passed, so you probably know this. But anyway, just wanted to let you guys know that. Have some fun with it. Thanks for watching, guys. I do appreciate you guys putting up with the, obviously kind of, it feels clickbaity to me to talk about the eclipse, but there were some interesting things I wanted to mention on it. Some other things, oh, something else I haven't mentioned yet. Actually, there's a lot of interesting stuff to do with ancient lore. For example, Aztecs and other ancient religions and civilizations based a lot of stuff around the sun. So eclipses were huge. And obviously you might have heard this a lot before already. Eclipses have been linked to strange behavior in animals and animals being injured. Obviously the same reason that humans are being injured is that they're looking at it, but it also has a little bit to do, their behavior switch that is, with the kind of ethereal, strange light that you get from the eclipse actually happening, because when the eclipse happens, you get a bit of a shift in the amount of light that's being shown, kind of like it being covered by clouds, but at the same time very different. It's kind of an ethereal sort of feel, and but yeah, so that is basically everything I have to say on the eclipse. Thanks so much for watching, guys. This has been Reflections with Splice Night. I'm Splice, and I will talk to you guys later. Splice out.